Welcome to The Investor, a podcast where I, Joel Palafinkel, your host, dives deep into the minds of the world's most influential institutional investors. In each episode, we sit down with an investor to hear about their journeys and how global markets are driving capital allocation. So join us on this journey as we explore these insights. So we're live here with Daniel Dart. Thank you again for the community for tuning in. Excited to introduce you guys to a speaker that I'm privileged to be on the call with. We got Daniel Dart, who's a general partner at Rockyard Ventures. Really excited about what he's built. He's also been featured as a very influential person with the Milken Institute. Was a professional musician for some time. So just really excited to hear your journey. All of us that have gotten into asset management have had different stories. And, we all have our path, whether it's challenges and wins, to get to where we are now. So, Daniel, excited to get with you today, this afternoon. I know you're super busy, so appreciate you making time for me and the community. So let's have some fun. Let's do some storytelling. Tell me a little bit about your early days. Where'd you grow up? Tell me about your history, your career, and how you got to where you are now.
I grew up in California. So I spent my early years in the Bay Area, in the East Bay, and then moved down to Southern California around 13. And so from 13 on, I kind of bounced around to about 6 or 7 different high schools, maybe over 4 years, in, different placements and reform schools and all that fun stuff. But Southern California became my home. I wasn't much of an academic in high school, so had a few dropouts and then drop back ins and dropouts, and even went to one continuation school where your grading system was based on your attendance. So if you showed up like 4 days a week, you would get an 80%, and that would be a B. Unfortunately, I think I still failed out of that, because at that point I wasn't going to school.
I mean, look, there's different levels of what people think smart is, right? So some people in society believe you're smart because you got straight A's, but some of those people that got straight A's, they can't get a job. They're just such an academic. They just stay in academia for the rest of their lives. And then I was kind of like the B student, but I was kind of good at just building friendships and getting hookups, trying to get the hookup to like the old test, or get like the the study guide. And I'm like, look, I'll give you the study guide for this class if you give me this study guide. So you kind of like build those connections. And like I was able to get a job like coming out of school, where like I met some people that like had 4.0 GPAs and they never got a job. Like they were just so studious that they didn't have any life skills. So I think it's all relative. I mean, another story we have a colleague we have a family friend that lives in the city, and he put his kids through like the most high-end private schools. And even after that, his son got a job at like Ernst & Young. And I know people that, went to, average schools and didn't go through all that. They got the same job through probably networking and building relationships. In my mind, I'm like, look, you know what, like your grades and whatever we measure as like intelligence, it's all relative in terms of like how that compares to your output.
I think it's hard because we're trying to fit this ideal rubric around people, like, hey, this is the path, and so much is shifting so quickly. And even now, I think when you think of like AI for skilled workers or lawyers or those, I think it's going to impact some of these communities immensely. Right. Where it's like, I don't use ChatGPT a ton, but the stuff I've actually found it the most useful for is some of the heavy accounting stuff. Right. Like thinking like, hey, how do I look at this over a 5-year forecast? Just much better than Excel. It's like being able to talk to Excel.
Sure. Yeah. And I think the form, I mentioned this to a few people. I mean, the form factor of Excel, of driving a car, of using a phone, that will change too, hopefully, with AI, because maybe, and we see this with humanoid robots, like maybe the form factor of like moving packages doesn't need to look like a human. Maybe it's just like this pallet thing that moves, and that's what achieves it. So I think it helps us to reimagine the form factor. We trust Excel because we've just used it and gotten comfortable with it, but maybe instead of Excel, there's a graph or like a dial that you turn to
I think it's almost like driverless cars. I remember the first time I saw one in San Francisco, I was like, oh my goodness, this is unreal. And now I don't even notice them anymore. And they're just everywhere. They've almost become ubiquitous in San Francisco. And I wonder, do the younger people who are like kids right now growing up, are they going to look at it and be like, why would I want to drive? Like, why do I even want that responsibility? Like, I could be on my phone playing video games or answering emails and so I think just the way that we kind of operate is going to change so significantly. And I think what we constitute as smart or studious, we have to figure out a way for that to change, or society is going to probably have some trouble.
Yeah. So tell me what happened next. So,
what happened next, and it's odd, right? Because as I know the end of the story already, so it's like to go from like, flunking out, getting kicked out, and dropping out of high school to eventually MIT, it's a big jump, right?
Oh yeah.
So it kind of goes to show you that maybe I wasn't as bad as maybe the teachers had kind of predicted. So I end up, kind of aging out of the school system, ending up in San Diego. Initially, I was like, hey, I want to, try and get a job or go to college. Or all these
you have to get a GED sometimes too, right? You have to get a GED to get a job.
So I ended up getting, I don't know if it was a GED or what. So I ended up graduating. I was in a juvenile kind of placement, lockup type thing. But I think there were 5 other people who quote unquote graduated at the same time I did. I saw 2 of them later on, both on a bus to prison. So, our graduating class wasn't the most stout when it came to early productivity. And so I did that, but what ended up happening is shortly after I ended up, in the county jail. And from there I ended up homeless. And I would always try to tell people being homeless, 20 years ago or something is so different than today because cell phones didn't exist. Social media didn't exist. Like when I lost touch with you, you were just gone. Like it wasn't like, oh, well, let me just look him up on IG or look him up and then send him a DM. And so I remember going to jail and I got 2 6-month sentences and getting out, and trying to get in touch with people. And it was like my little kind of network was just gone. And it was such a hard thing.
I guess back then, how did you get a hold of people? I mean, I remember I was so proud of having a beeper, when I was in high school.
A beeper.
So did they have beepers back then? Like when you were in jail?
Yeah, I had a beeper in high school.
Yeah.
Right. And you remember there were certain payphones you could go to?
Oh yeah.
Had callbacks.
I'd use
so you'd be like, hey, let's go to this phone because I can do a callback.
Yeah.
But imagine back then, no beeper, none of that. And you're kind of just on your own.
It's weird because phone book. You got the yellow pages. Remember that? The big ass phone books?
You have the yellow pages and you have all of that. I think the thing about it too is just a lot of times trying to hunt people down because it was by city or district. It was just not the same. And they updated it maybe once a year, or it was unlisted or and so I remember just kind of losing touch with everybody. And it's weird as I kind of, what I would say is ended up being homeless. I was young enough at 18, 19, 20. It didn't impact me the same way I think it would for people that are older. I was in San Diego. I would sleep on the beach. I would go to different soup kitchens or those things for meals. There was a place on College Avenue in San Diego called College Avenue Baptist Church that I would go to Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. They would have free coffee and donuts.
Yeah.
And at that point, I think my life had been so volatile that I think I kind of like being alone. I kind of like being by myself. I think I just didn't want anybody to bother me. And sometimes when you're homeless, that's very easy to do. And so I don't look back on that as this really kind of sad period. I kind of look at it as something to help me, because it also kind of gave me the courage. Like there, if you didn't ask people for spare change, like you could starve. So it kind of brings you out of your cell just as a forcing function. And I think also when you've lost everything, you kind of lose a lot of the ego or the self-importance or those things that sometimes I think hold us back. The fear of kind of looking stupid, to be honest. And losing that, I think, is super valuable, right? Because like the sooner you can kind of get over your own limitations or your own fears of not knowing, I think that's when you're really going to achieve really cool, great things.
Yeah. And I mean, most people that have done amazing things have done it from hitting rock bottom. You know, they've kind of hit this low point. So it's not, you can't really go any lower than that certain point if you define that as your low point. But, you know, talk about what happened after that. So so you were homeless, but you did have some resources. There are some resources to food and, you know, and some support groups, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So I was homeless for about 3 years. And then I ended up getting a job at a cafe. Right.
So were you able to get like lunch as well, like lunch and dinner, and just kind of ways to find food? They have soup kitchens.
I would just ask people for change. Right. Okay. So like there was a routine that I had, like every Monday, this church would serve pasta. And then like every Wednesday it would be here. Or actually, no, Wednesdays and Sundays at the time were, do you remember 29-cent and 39-cent hamburgers and cheeseburgers at McDonald's?
I remember hamburgers were like 80, 90 cents.
Yeah.
I don't remember them being 30.
You could tell the years I was homeless. So for a few years, it was like 99, 2000, 2001. They had specials at McDonald's every Wednesday and Sunday. I think Wednesday was 39-cent cheeseburgers. And then Sunday was 29-cent hamburgers. And you could buy like up to 20 or something.
Sure.
I almost want to like Google and go through, but I would do that every week. So like I had this kind of routine. And then really, I think community.
I think the routine also helps too, because I think if you can really get into your head if you have too much empty space where you don't have a routine. So
if you have like something to do.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And then you kind of like meet other like street kids. So there was a few guys that I kind of got to know, and I had this kind of routine. And if I needed to get somewhere, I would just hitchhike. So like I'd go to gas stations and ask people who are about our age, like, hey, are you headed this way? Can you? And I did that. I hitchhiked almost every day for about 2 years. Right. And so I just bounced around and people would say, sure. You know, I ended up getting a job at a cafe. So I met, there was little places that we would hang out, like kind of as homeless kids.
Yeah.
And someone was like, hey, do you want a job? And I was like, yeah. And so I ended up getting a job that I had for about a year. And through that, I ended up getting an apartment. There was 4 of us. We had a little studio. I wouldn't even call it a studio apartment. It was like a kind of a back room in a house. So like the entrance was in the back. 4 of us lived in there. It was one room, calculated studio, but there was no kitchen at all. It was a room with a bathroom, and then we had a hot plate, a microwave, and no refrigerator. And I remember we would drink grape Welch's soda was like our thing, because it actually tastes good when it's not cold.
Yeah.
And did that. And then I, was still, drinking a lot and doing that whole thing, and ended up getting arrested a few more times. And what really kind of changed is I ended up getting arrested, and instead of going to prison, I got this diversion opportunity to go to a 6-month like residential program. And I met this really amazing social worker.
So tell me about the program. So they help you kind of turn yourself around, find a job, kind of develop yourself a little more. Like they kind of have a support system.
Yeah. I mean, there was like, so it's 6 months that I had to be there, 180 days specifically.
Yeah.
And, they had different programs. They had drug treatment programs. They had
they have career support programs, like helping you with your
meditation.
resume.
Yeah, career support. They would help you get like, a suit and tie.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff. They had family support depending on the individual who went through the program.
And tell me what was amazing about the social worker.
He was just awesome, man. He was his name was Les Lazarus. He's passed away, but he was a saint. And he was an old con too, right? So he had been a convict before. And so like sometimes when you meet these kind of ex-cons, there's an alignment of understanding, because I think especially when you're young and you're in a situation where life is so day to day, just all the time, and also like your peer validation network is so driven by jail and street and all that I think most people don't understand it. And the analogy I would use about being homeless or in and out of jail at the time, it was similar to you maybe with a helicopter. Like when you see a helicopter in the air, do you think, oh, I have to have that helicopter? Probably not.
Yeah.
And when I was homeless and on the streets, I actually didn't see people who were doing well and be like, hey, that's what I need, because that's not what my peer network was.
Yeah.
Like my peer network was other people who were homeless, other people who were doing that. It was almost like we were in the same world, but in different dimensions. Like
what were they, so tell me about that peer. So that peer network, like what were you guys talking about? Were they trying to like find a job? Were they just trying to find a place to eat? Like what was kind of,
I think it was all over the gamut. I think most people who are young and homeless and in situations like that, I think there's a lot of trauma. I think there's a big lack of maturity, and not in a negative way, but I think at the time we're so young that we're not smart enough to understand the things we don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think sometimes when you're young and you're a kid, like we can be impulsive, we can be very reactive. I think as you get that, and I see it sometimes even on like Instagram with influencers, like it's so curated, like it's so inauthentic. And I think young people don't realize that. And I think being homeless and all of these things, like at that point, the validation that I sought was in my immediate peer network.
Yeah.
Right. And I think even looking at it now in VC, in finance, I think the most important thing for me that I try to do is how do I put myself around really amazing people that I admire and just respect? Because I found that whoever I put myself around rubs off on me. Like you are your friend. Right. And so one of the things I think is taking that same mindset, right? Like I hope to be one of the best investors ever. I hope that founders love working with me. I think equally as much, I want to be someone very much so that people look at, hey, that's a good dude. It doesn't mean I'm perfect. It doesn't mean that I don't make some really big mistakes, and there's not a ton of things that have happened that I look back and go, hey, I regret doing that. If I could do it again. I think it's more of like, for me going forward, who do I give my time and energy and space to? Because that will be a reflection, and that's who I'm going to become. And I would say the same thing. And I think that in essence is the power of cohort learning. It's the power of, like the Sutton Capital cohort learning, the Y Combinator thing is you're bringing together these people, you're building this peer validation network. It's like, it's that kind of same gang mentality, but for good. Right.
And I want to hear a little more about the, so we talked about the community and that mentality for good. I want to double click, if it's okay with you, I want to double click a little more on that 6-month, experience with that amazing social worker who had that same, experience. He probably felt passionate, almost like maybe a big brother figure to you. Did you feel that too? That kind of like, closeness, just kind of being there.
Yeah, he was great. He really was like, a big brother, an uncle, just like that kind of almost father figure,
Yeah.
just like the older kind of
Hmm.
mentor. But I ended up starting the band Time Again,
Hmm.
right? And
Sure.
the name at the time
That
was kind of a
time when you
joke.
started the band, like did you kind of use music as an outlet, like in that period, that 6 month
Yeah,
period?
so initially when we had a conversation probably 5 months of the program. He's like, "Hey, what do you want to do with your life?"
Yeah.
And I really didn't know.
Hmm.
And he was like, "Yo, if I was a genie and you could do anything, like what would you do? Like who would you
Yeah.
be?" And I remember like in a very kind of like cocky way that only like a 21-year-old could
Yeah.
do, being like, "I'd be a rock star." Right? Like who doesn't want to be a rock star? And he's like, "Dude, then start a
Yeah.
band." Like,
Yeah.
and his whole thing was just like, "Hey, go for it." Like, you got this life ahead of you, like
Hmm.
dream a bit.
Yeah.
And so I ended up starting the band and I
Hmm.
named it, Time Again, because time and time again. And I was so afraid of getting my hopes up.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what the name was. I was like, oh, here we go again. Right. Like we'll see.
Hmm.
And
What
then
did
it
you
just kind of
play? Like
took
what
off.
were
I'm the
what did you
singer.
you're a singer. Okay. So how
Yeah.
did they have
Yeah.
singing lessons to kind of help you to learn how to
No,
sing?
man. No, I just was like, I just started asking people I
Yeah.
would meet. I'd be like, I'd find out they play guitar. I'd be like, hey,
Yeah.
let's write
Let's
songs
do
and start a
something.
band.
Yeah.
Um, I think it was this commitment where I was like, hey, no matter what it takes, I'm gonna find a way.
Yeah.
Um, and when we took off, I think going back to Les and the social worker is about a year into it, we ended up getting on our first magazine cover.
Wow.
And I told Les, man, we're on a magazine cover. He's like, oh, I got to get one. Where do I get one? I said, oh, I'll bring one by for you. He's like, oh, man, I'd love that. And he ended up framing it and putting it up in
Mhm.
his office.
Did
And
you
I
were
remember,
you able to
like,
get some paid gigs doing that as well? Like playing
in the
for,
band,
yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
we have gold
Well, when
records,
you
man.
start,
We
well,
tour the
okay, so
world.
we skipped a couple steps, right? So you
Yeah.
started a band. You're kind of in this 6 month development program. Tell me how that developed, right? Because
So
you
I
found a
was
few
in the
people.
6 month program.
Yeah.
I didn't start the band till after.
Okay.
So I end up getting out of the program, and now I'm living in Hollywood,
Okay.
and I'm working at Quiznos
Oh yeah, I
subs,
remember the good sandwiches.
right? Yeah, I'm working at
I
Quiznos.
love
I'm
Quiznos.
doing my thing,
Yeah.
and
And you're playing
trying.
part time, trying to get some gigs
At
with
this point,
these.
I'm still trying to start the band.
Oh, okay,
Um,
got it. Yeah. Was it hard to
and
find a guitarist and like
yeah,
drummers
yeah,
and
it was. I,
stuff?
I must have probably played with 20 or 30 people before one stuck. And
Yeah.
then once the guitar player stuck, then we still rotated
Mhm.
more. But we ended up getting our first gig. We played at the Cat Club in Hollywood.
Mhm.
October 1st, 2003, I think it was.
Yeah.
Um, and or maybe 2004, one of those. I know it was on October 1st. And then it just kind of took off, man. And next thing you
Mhm.
know, we're playing all over town. And then, we end up getting on local radio. We end up getting an agent. We get a record deal. The next thing you know, we're touring the US and then we're touring the world. Um, and, we're on TV, like there was like
Mhm.
Views and different video channels at the time. And it just took off, man.
I'm just
Um,
still flabbergasted in terms of like how fast you took me through that journey. I guess like, I mean, it's almost like a founder story, right? I mean, sometimes the band people
yeah,
don't get along, but like it seems like the core team of the band, tell me about that, like the dynamic, like
yeah, it
why do you
really
think you
is.
became so successful as
Yeah,
an
I
artist?
think it really is a founder story. One of the things that I think looking back that I didn't know at the time is like when things are working and hitting,
Hmm.
growth it can be so exponential.
Yeah.
Um, and it wasn't till later on, when I started working with other bands kind of on the management side, that
Hmm.
I realized how special building Time Again had been,
Yeah.
right? And also really how well I think my personality and my work ethic
Hmm.
thrived within an entrepreneurial setting. Like
Yeah.
once I could influence things and move at my own speed for kind of good, I realized, hey, I'm good at this and I like it.
Hmm.
The fact that there's no rules and no structure, and I can kind of build and do whatever I want. And I think I really thrived. And we took off. We were self-managed. I handled all that stuff and helped negotiate our contracts and did all that. And it grew, exponentially. We put out 4 records, toured the world maybe 12 times.
Wow.
And I think, and again, we had 2 different bass players, 2 different drummers. The guitar player stayed the same. Well, actually, no, we ended up getting a different guitar player. So it was really, at the end, it became like kind of just me and rotating cast. But what I found was I was good at places where I could influence the outcome.
Yeah.
And I think when I think of founder stories and by influencing the outcome, it's that ability to independently decide when you have to pivot, right? Because that is really what's happening. And I think as I kind of worked with other artists, I found that some people lack the ability to pivot. They're like, hey, no. And no matter how much new information comes up, they're so set because of some cost and maybe it's ego, or maybe, I believe in this kind of this thing of this like upper limit theory that sometimes in our mind, we believe we should be a certain level. And as we try to get above it, we'll sabotage and bring ourselves down. Yeah. And I think that kind of courage to step outside of ourselves is something I got when I was homeless, because it reduced my fear level.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
it's
that's
like,
really helpful.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on Milli Vanilli, and it kind of coincides with your thoughts around just kind of having a little more control of, like, being an artist, being in control of the management. So I was just kind of really I mean, it's a really sad story, but I watched the documentary of Milli Vanilli, and it just kind of sucked how the management team really drove a lot of the decisions, and then Fabrice, one of them recently passed away, but Fabrice actually learned to sing, and I was blown away. I actually watched him on YouTube, and Fabrice is an amazing singer now, and he sings all the Milli Vanilli classics, and you see the comments on YouTube. I mean, those fans, I mean, they really love those songs. So it was great to kind of have one of the founders just kind of keep it alive. Just talk to me about, just management in the music industry, and just kind of how that's evolved, and how it was when you were getting starting out.
Yeah. I mean, so music it's unique because I think there's a lot of like smoke and mirrors in what I would say big pop culture music, right? So like coming up, I think, with what we would call like backpack hip hop or punk rock, or kind of like outlaw folk, you don't have that, really, because you don't have, I think, the incentives and those demands. I think it's the same way when you look at big companies that slide off the edges. They have these earning reports, they have that. I think a similar thing happened with Ashley Simpson when she was on Saturday Night Live. And I think the first time too, I went to like a big Chris Brown show or something, and he was like singing over his tracks. And like that's the vibe, and he's like dancing in the track, and then he like jumps in, and now that's almost like the culture. But it was like surprising to me, because I'm like, okay, this is different, because that's not the world where I was at. And I think the thing about Time Again is, like, for us, I think there was an angst where it's like, yes, I was a singer, and I think we did well, and we sold a lot of records, and we still get, last year I think we had 900,000 streams or something. Wow. Right? And it's surprising, because for us it was more of like the attitude and what we stood for, and the passion and the meaning of like, hey, we're these underdog kind of people. I think when you look at these other things where all these stakeholders for people like a Milli Vanilli, it almost kind of reminds me of the bad journey you hear in venture capital sometimes, where it's like, hey, the VCs come in and they do this, and you shouldn't do this, but they push you this way, and more growth, more spend. And it's like, that wasn't my experience, so it's hard for me to fully understand. But I can also empathize, because I saw it sometimes where people would kind of come up in the industry who were my peers growing up, and they'd sign other record deals, and their experience was so different. My experience with Rancid, who really Rancid signed us, and Bad Religion on Epitaph and Hellcat.
Yeah.
They were like hands off. They're like, yo, turn in your record. Like they didn't hear the record till it was done.
Yeah.
Whereas like other bands and artists, I remember they go through all this and management, rewrite this and have demands there and this.
Yeah.
It was just a totally different experience.
You were signed by an artist, which I think would be different than like a large record label, because I think it's almost like they're kind of almost like angel investing in you, finding new talent, like the next generation, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's hard because I think every once in a while I'll hear too with VCs like, hey, why did that round get so big? Like, why did you raise 10 out of 50 rather than like really like 5 out of 20 or something, right?
Yeah.
And it comes down to like a partner at that firm hadn't gotten a deal done and had to get a deal done.
Sure.
But I'm like, yo, like the person that actually is going to hurt in the long run, it could be the company, because if you're not a $50 million company and you raised at a $50 million valuation, your next round's going
to be a down round. Definitely.
It's going to be very, very tough. And I think we need to make sure that like our incentives align. Like, are you working with people that really kind of believe in what you're doing, or are they going to be, and I wouldn't even say passive bystanders, because some of these dudes can be super aggressive.
Yeah.
Right. So not only are they putting you into a rough situation, they're doing it in a multitude of ways. And I think that's one thing about music. And I think the most famous story is Taylor Swift and Scooter Braun. Right. And it's surprising to me because like, and I don't know either of them personally, but I think like when I look back, it's like Taylor Swift just re-recording everything, like as we would say, like that's so punk rock. She's like, okay, like I'll just make new masters. And or like Prince is like, yo, I'm just gonna do this. Unfortunately, there's not a ton of opportunities for that in VC, but I do think we're seeing a change. Like sometimes I'll see articles where like I'll hear of this investor and he's super successful, but it's like it seems like everybody who had done deals with him doesn't like him. And I remember thinking like and again, there's a bunch of information I don't know, but also like the goal of life can't be just to see how much money and material stuff we can get, right? Like that can't be it, right? Like we want to make our community and the people around us more joyful. You know, like I want my friends to feel more joy because I'm part of their life, and vice versa. Right now, do I think being more successful with money can make that happen? Of course, right? But do I think that as a result, it's dependent, meaning like that will happen? Of course, no. And I think sometimes when I look at all of this, like having gone to prison and having been homeless, there's a lot of things I think that people think are big deals that I don't think are big deals. Right. And I think that's a blessing because like there's a lot of like very hard times, especially with people I've invested in and stuff. Like I want you to be able to tell me anything. And I'll tell you what, I may not disagree with you, but like life happens, man. And life is like messy and people make really bad decisions sometimes. And that's unfortunate, but also like sometimes the information we have when we're making decisions is bad. Right. And so it's like, as an investor and like a co-collaborator on this company, it doesn't mean we have to get along, but I want to, as much as possible, work with people that I really expect and admire. And so if I respect you and admire you, then I hope we get along. And also, life is easier. It is like a point of alpha generation to get along with people, right? Like getting along with people and being nice will benefit you and pay immense dividends.
Yeah, and you don't really have to pay anything or do anything to do that. It's just really
anything, right? Like
it's your philosophy of how to treat people, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about this third chapter, which we also kind of quickly went over. But tell me, and I was kind of looking at your Wikipedia. I mean, it looks like you built a talent management company, so you kind of evolved into a business person in the media space. And I can see that have natural progressions into being an investor. So talk about that inflection point and what drove you to start an investment firm.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're also what are you investing in? What are you excited about? And what's your view?
Yeah.
On
So
what's exciting?
So I ended up going from being an artist into the management side unintentionally. But a lot of the music stuff that I enjoyed the most is I enjoyed the entrepreneurial kind of like patching together the plane as you're taking it off. So I actually enjoyed the management part a ton, right? You're working with partners, you're thinking critically, you're trying to make something out of nothing. And that's something I think with music that kind of recycles, because every time you do a new record, you're creating like a new kind of company or division. It's very entrepreneurial. And from there, I ended up, kind of accidentally getting into some like social policy work. So I was working with the band Weezer, Brian Bell
Huge band.
and Weezer, and we ended up doing something on gun violence. And that resulted in me getting involved in immigration work, which I'm a big supporter of what I call economic opportunity, upward mobility. So like I have a core belief that where you were born should not determine your destination. Right. And so, I believe in the opportunity for immigrants to come here or go anywhere and build an amazing life. I really believe that like if someone's born in Chicago, they should have the ability to jump on the ladder as easily as someone in Beverly Hills.
Sure.
Right.
I totally agree with that.
I really loved that. And so I started building campaigns. That artist management turned into like a strategic campaign consulting company. And as I got more and more into that, I learned about VC.
Well, the thing is, too, a lot of those things you need capital to be able to enable a lot of those resources.
Capital.
Yeah.
And you need risk capital. And the thing I like about VC that really drew me to it is not only is it bottom-up investment, right? It's like the majority of equity, power, ownership stays not only with the founder, but within the community the founder lives.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, this is a really, really cool transformative tool. And like, if the company fails, your credit score is not destroyed.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's so friendly to the company builders. And so a lot of that is, okay, now how do we create pathways or on-ramps into this ecosystem? And that's when I really started getting into academia. I ended up going to university. So first I did 2 masters at London School of Economics and then MIT, right, for the MBA. And it was like, hey, how can I become an investor? How can I become an early stage guy? And then from there, the sectors really are where are the sectors that I'm just the most passionate about. And for me, those are like those core industries. Think like blue collar, think like, old school, traditional. And so that's really kind of how I got into construction tech, supply chain, logistics, manufacturing, engineering, is I'm like, these are foundational industries. And growing up, my dad had a local lumberyard and building materials like supply store. So like if you needed like granite for your yard or like paving stones or gravel, and the nickname of that was the Rockyard. And so that's how I got the name Rockyard Ventures for the firm, is because I remember, you're a kid and you look at like your dad and these industries and these guys and yeah, maybe they're just construction workers or maybe they're just warehouse guys. But like, to me, they were like titans. They were like, this is what a grown-up should be. And I love those industries.
Right now it's interesting because a lot of people are saying, if you want to be a millionaire, go to a trade school and learn plumbing, learn infrastructure, learn construction. Those are like the sexy industries to be in. And a lot of the people that go to the, the top tier schools and work at McKinsey, a lot of times they're just not, obviously philosophically building something, right? Where like construction, actually building infrastructure. But a lot of times when you think about the wealth creation, there's, we're not going to stop needing to build and stop fixing infrastructure. So it's and especially now with like where the interest rates are, a lot of those services have inflated. If you just want to just hire a handyman, see how much it costs now from 3 years ago, and you can see the price. Change.
And I think that on top of that, someone who is like a second chance worker who's been incarcerated, there's big labor shortages. So sometimes, like when you think about like roofing or you think about infrastructure building, not only do we need to build more and house more and do all of these things, and hopefully we can drive down costs, increase access, but we have labor shortages. So it's like, I think there's this perfect opportunity. And what I believe wholeheartedly is, as a VC investor, early stage, if you're not really, really in love with the sector you're investing, it's not going to work out long term, because I think so much of it is a research job. Like you're always researching what's new. You need to be that. You need to enjoy going to these conferences. You need to enjoy those sectors. And so I feel just blessed to kind of now to work in a space where like I get to kind of spend every day working, talking to, researching, experience these sectors that I really like, and I love the people in them.
What are you excited about on the early stage? Are you seeing a lot of interesting software and robotics kind of automating the construction space?
Sports stuff. There's a ton of software. I think with the advent of AI capabilities, things are going to get radically kind of reshaped. But the stuff I really like is, how do we kind of bridge that physical and digital world, right? Like you can't digitize a piece of lumber or a piece of steel, but the way we build and the way we evolve, like how do we increase that, right? Like how do we take a building that takes 3 years and figure out a way to do it in 16 months? And also even on the permitting and horizontal side, and even on the manufacturing side, like how do we do it faster? How do we do it more cost effective? So yeah, I'm very excited. I think it's the best industry to be investing in because it's critical infrastructure.
Yeah. And I would say even downstream, when you think about some of those boring businesses, these boring businesses that just do infrastructure and do construction, those are like $5 to $10 million revenue generating businesses that are growing every year. And then even further downstream on the acquisition side, there's large conglomerates that are big construction companies, right? $5 billion construction conglomerates that, it just makes sense for them to swallow up the tech and have that be part of their corporate innovation strategy. So I think there's 100%. A lot of pathways. And I think strategically, if you can kind of make that, you kind of vision that exit from the startup and think about who their acquirers could be, that's also exciting too. But Daniel, I want to also be fulfilling on my promise to get you out on time. So appreciate you coming in. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. I think there's so much storytelling that that all of us appreciate. So thanks for your time and thanks for sharing today, and excited to hopefully catch up in person soon.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, and have a great day. And if I don't talk to you before the end of the year, man, let's make it a good one.
Absolutely. Take care. Have a good one.
Cheers.
Yeah. Bye.